And we are live here on Plus One EXP's Roll for Content channel. My name is Tony Vicinda. We're a weird little brand that multi-classes in tabletop game design, beard and skincare alchemy, and the Bardic College of Content Creation. We are starting to try to host more and more community conversations here on the channel. Our hope, our desire here at Plus One EXP is to help amazing designers find great players who love their games and help great players find amazing designers whose games they can love. And a big part of that conversation oftentimes centers around games that are coming out, games that are new, how games get made, talking to different designers about their design process and the process of funding a game, getting the finances you need to actually make a game is a big part of that. And so tonight, tomorrow, and the following night, we're going to be talking about a new, different way to crowdfund. People are certainly probably familiar with the idea of Kickstarter, putting a game up that you have in development or done and trying to get your friends, family, and the rest of the internet to support you for that. It can be an incredibly emotionally draining process, but a lot of us in the indie ttrpg community or in certain parts of that community have been talking lately about a process called ItchFunding. So for 3 nights, we're going to talk about ItchFunding, what it is. But before we dive straight into that, I want to introduce you to my guest / co-host, I guess, for tonight, because it's the two of us on mic all night long. And that's GM Jeff Stormer. Jeff, how's it going tonight?
It is going excellent. How are you doing tonight, my friend?
I am doing very, very well. Greetings from across the city. I'm just slightly up there north of you. Most important information, I did find out that there is a chance. I got my hair cut next to the guy who owns Dottie's Donuts the other day at the end of my street, and they may be opening up a Dottie's Donuts in my neighborhood. Which
that's lovely. Yeah. I had Dottie's Donuts for breakfast today. Big love for Dottie's Donuts. Dottie's Donuts is a vegan donut shop. Every day they have specials and they have like a flavor of the day. Today was a Yoda donut that was a matcha and chocolate cream. Jen had that donut. I did not have that donut. I had a cookies and cream and a chocolate pistachio. They also make a donut called the Homer. And I appreciate this because I think of like if I say the words the Homer and you picture a specific donut, like there's a very specific donut that you should picture. And I appreciate that they call it the Homer and the little tag that they put in the window is just a drawing of Homer Simpson. Yeah. Like I appreciate that because that is it speaks to me on a very personal level and I appreciate that.
Yeah. And so they know the other day he was in there, I was in there, and he mentioned that he's looking for a new location. They've popped it out a couple times on social media also too, but they were looking at a couple of locations right down at the end of my street. I'm very, very excited about that potential reality. So,
so this is a stream about donuts, right?
This is a donut stream. This stream is brought to you by Dottie's Donuts, also brought to you by Steve Jackson Games. Now, no one understands that. Isn't it great when you tune in and people have inside jokes that no one else understands?
I love it. It's good content.
So we're going to talk about ItchFunding, and you and I have talked about this a lot, along with a lot of our friends over in the Brain Trust. We've got some other guests who are going to talk tomorrow night about a little bit more intentionally about what some of the best practices that have evolved are, and I'm sure you and I will get into that a little bit. But I wanted, first of all, to just let people know who you are, and I want to talk to you. You had a game that went up before Itch and Funding had been portmanteaued. You put a game up and ostensibly ItchFunded it. And so I want to dive into that also. But before we do that, just tell people a little bit about who you are, what you do, and where they can find your work online, specifically the game we're going to be talking about tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Jeff Stormer. I am a podcaster, game designer, and the official LARP designer of the Olive Garden restaurant. You can find my work at jeffstormer.com. You can find the podcast that I produce every week, Party of One, which is an actual play focused on 2-player role-playing experiences at partyofonepodcast.com. And for the purposes of this discussion, I am also a game designer. And as you mentioned, over the winter back in December, I released Anyone Can Wear the Mask, which is a hack of D. Pennyway's Beyond the Rift that is about a superhero, a supervillain in the city that they share. I released that back in December. And what I'm calling now the Ultimate Edition of the game is going to be coming out over the summer. Release date coming soon. I haven't quite finalized it yet, and I'm a little bit panicked about giving myself a deadline on it, but I have to eventually do it. So it's coming. It'll be coming out over the summer, and that's going to be the end state, I guess. The end point of our conversation, if we can foreshadow the ending a little bit of our conversation, is the Ultimate Edition of the game is going to include full interior art. It's going to include an audio book. It's going to include access to a virtual play space. It's gonna be pretty cool. Like, it is the ultimate version of the game is what I am envisioning is like the completest version of the product, that everything that comes after that is just kind of gravy and me paying my friends to make superhero settings for me. So yeah, that's going to be coming out over the summer, and that's kind of the, I guess, ending point of the conversation we're going to be having today.
that was the foreshadowing scene. Now we're going to tell you the dark sword path that gets us to that point. For people who
you're probably wondering how I got here. Freeze frame.
For people who aren't familiar with the game, haven't checked it out, if you're watching on Twitch right now, I just dropped that link down below. If you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, the link is in the description of this video. You can click on it and check it out. I would highly encourage you to. But tell us a little bit about what the game specifically is about. Give us the elevator pitch for the game also.
Yeah, absolutely. So like I said, the game is about a superhero, a supervillain, and the city that they share. It is a 3-player role-playing game inspired by like my favorite superhero comics, which are it is a big wears a Superman influence on its sleeve, and it wears a Spider-Man influence on its sleeve. There's also some Batman in there, but it's not as important to me as Superman and Spider-Man. It is a story about. It is a game that tells a story kind of scene by scene. It really issue by issue. Of a superhero comic in which every issue involves the superhero ultimately saving the day and defeating a threat, and raising the question of if they can save everyone along the way and what it means when they can't. They ultimately face off against their grand nemesis, the Lex Luthor to their Superman, the Joker to their Batman. The hero falls short. The hero comes back stronger and saves the day. And then there is a third player who plays the city, which is quietly my favorite role in the game, which is the third player introduces a city piece by piece, kind of person by person, location by location. And together, the three of you create this very classic kind of superhero story arc that is very near and dear to my heart as someone that went to school for comic books years ago.
And I had a chance to play it. We played it here on stream. I had an absolute blast playing the game. I think it's got ton of potential. If you haven't watched it, haven't checked it out, I would encourage you to. Jeff links to a ton of media, not just our play, but a ton of other ones on the page also. So go check all of those out. And that's the game. But you've run successful Kickstarters in the past. I was actually trying to dig around to find one of my 2 copies of Mission Accomplished, which is an absolutely phenomenal game.
Oh, I love Mission Accomplished.
And we won't elevator pitch that one. You should go check it out also too, though. If I don't know where people go to buy that, but you should go buy it wherever it is.
You can pick up Mission Accomplished at jeffstormer.itch.io. You may already have it. It was part of the Itch bundle for racial justice. But I know you said I wasn't going to elevator pitch.
Okay, an elevator pitch. I
play my own rules. Mission Accomplished is a game about super spies and office meetings. It is about a group of super spies who have saved the world, blown up the Doomsday device, and come home in one piece. And now comes for the real work, which is sitting down with management in a crowded conference room and hashing out what went right, what went wrong, who is getting a promotion, and who is getting black bagged and never seen again.
It's a phenomenal game. I absolutely love it. People should 100% go check it out. So you did that. You funded it successful Kickstarter.
Yes,
and we can talk a little bit about maybe how any of that influenced your decision to put things up on Itch. But I think the big question people would be asking, this is before ItchFunding was a conversation. Like we said, last December, you probably were not the first person to ever fund a game in an iterative process on Itch, because I know video game designers do it on a regular basis. Mm-hmm. But what made you decide to put it up on Itch rather than just running a Kickstarter?
There were a lot of different factors, some positive and some negative. There were a lot of different factors that went into it. Part of it was out of a mix of practicality and impatience. The fulfillment for Mission Accomplished, there were delays in the process. And so we launched it October 2018. We wrapped it November 2018. We started work on it January of 2019, and we just sent out the last round of books last month. So it was a long process. It was a 2-year fulfillment periods, and I didn't feel comfortable running a Kickstarter while I was fulfilling a Kickstarter. Like I knew, even though tangibly the work was out of my hands, I was still kind of steering the ship, and I didn't want it to look like I was leaving backers in the lurch. So I kind of said, well, I can't really take anything to Kickstarter until mission accomplished is fulfilled. Until mission accomplished is done, like I can't move forward. So I was like, well, but I really like this game. I'm really happy with it, and I want to put it out the door. So I have to think about another way to do that. But I also think, putting on my marketing hat for a minute, I think it was and it is a game that has an audience out, like has an audience hook. It has an audience kind of out a little bit outside of like your traditional gamer space. Like I think it was a game that I was really excited about, and I really wanted to kind of market and really like put out into the world. Oh, we're out of community copies. I have to fix that. I got the stream up in front of me, and I just saw that.
Yeah, I figured.
We will fix that.
I noticed your very professional, subtle shifting to talking to me as if we were sitting in the same room talking to each other at the beginning of the stream. I really appreciated the level of professionalism.
I'm glad that you appreciate where I'm at. Yeah, so like I noticed, like I was like, I can't really take this to Kickstarter until mission accomplished is done. But but I was like, I don't know when that's gonna be exactly. Like I don't have the date, because all of the work that I had done on it was kind of out of my hands, and we were just sort of waiting for books to get to people. So I was just kind of like sitting around. I was like, well, I don't want to like wait an indeterminate amount of time. I really think this game has potential, and I want to get it out into the world. And so I was like, what if I just put it out? Like, what if I just released it? And as I was thinking about that, I was like, I've done that before, and it gets a decent response. But like, and then I kind of started to think about, I said, all right, well, and this kind of, I'll leave that there for now, because I think that kind of segues into sort of a conclusion space. The slightly more negative response is like, there were definitely parts of the mission accomplished Kickstarter that I didn't like. Like I had a few interactions that like weren't great. And so like, I was like, I don't really want to be beholden to the Kickstarter backer structure for an indeterminate amount of time again. Like if I'm going to do this, I want to be able to do it in a way that says, I am done with this project. If it goes no further, you have received the thing that I have promised you on day one. Like my work is done on day one, so that like, if more stuff is added to that, cool. If not, I get to still say that I'm done with the project. So that was part of it. Part of it was like, I wanted to release the game, but like, I didn't know when I was going to be able to do a Kickstarter. Part of it was that like, I kind of wanted to not do a Kickstarter for this game. And then part of it was, candidly, like, to talk about money, because I think it is helpful at times both to talk about money and also to kind of, especially like with how Anyone Can Wear the Mask went, I think it's important to kind of put on the disclaimer of like, here are some to kind of recognize a few of the privileges that I have. Like I had taken some freelance gigs, and like I also have a steady paying job that like the game stuff that I do doesn't pay my bills. So I had ended up on some freelance gigs, and like a small chunk of money had landed in my lap that like was only going to go towards games and projects. So I said, like, what if I just paid out of pocket for like layout of the game? What if I paid for layout of the game? I paid for a cover, and I made it no art. I said, what if I release an artless game, and I just release it? And I say like, hey, if I make enough money, if people buy this game, if there is an audience for this game, like I think there is, and I get a chunk of money, why don't I just go to this artist that I've already talked to, Elijah Forbes, who did the cover and has done the interior art, crushed it, like brilliant, beautiful cover, beautiful interior art. I can't wait for people to see it. And I said, like, why don't I just like do that? Why don't I get the art, I get the layout, I make the thing. And then if I get the money to pay for interior art later, I can just update the itch page and go, hey, here's the thing with art. Like, here's the thing that exists. So that was a big part of it, was like a lot of factors just went into me going, why don't I just do this, make this a thing, and then see what happens, right? Like I was kind of throwing things at a wall. And the other part of it, to cite inspirations and to talk about like conversations that had happened, was shout out to the Brain Trust, shout out to Adam Vass and Will Yopes for talking about like degreening stuff on the Brain Trust podcast. And also shout out to also hold on one second. I want to remember exactly their name. Also, shout out to Hello Ten Bear on Twitter for talking to me about this prior to the Brain Trust episode, which they mentioned on the Brain Trust episode about degreening. Of like, we had a conversation about a party of one episode that I had recorded with the designer of a game, and we started to talk about like, hey, this is really cool. Like, playing games with the designer is a cool thing. Like, that's a cool, neat experience. And like talking about it, we were like, oh, you know, there's probably a market for that, for designers that are comfortable doing that, which I recognize is not everybody, but as a podcaster and shill, like that is me at all times. As a consummate ham, I am pro putting on my performance face at all times. But I kind of said, okay, that's really interesting. And I had done that for Mission Accomplished. I offered people a chance to play, like I played a few games with people as like rewards. So I said, okay, why don't I just do that? And I kind of talked about this on Twitter, and that kind of segued into some discussion on the Brain Trust episode of like, why don't I just do that? Like I don't have to be running a Kickstarter to say, hey, my game is $15. If you want to give me 150, I will book myself for 4 hours of your day and run my game in a bespoke game for you and a friend. Like, I was like, okay, I can just build that into my page. And then if people buy it, cool. And if not, well, then they just sit there. Right. Like, so that plus the timeline, plus like all these other things, I was like, well, then, and like, I just kind of looked at everything and I was like, this is basically just a Kickstarter. I was like, why don't I just run this as if I were running a Kickstarter? I set my goals. I said, I want this much money. I asked Eli, I said, how much is it going to cost for interior art on this whole thing? And then I asked our layout artist, Blue Tuesdays, I said, Blue, how much is this going? What is your recommendation for the amount of art that we put in your layout? And I got my answers. I got the quote, and I was like, this is how much money it's going to take to finish the game. If we give me this much, we're good. Here's my goals. And then I was like, okay, now I'm starting to make a Kickstarter. Now I'm starting to have fun here. And then the rest of it was just me goofing around, right? The rest of it was me just going like, well, okay, I've already put goals in here. My best friend in the world is Aaron Catano Saez, who is a voice actor. Why don't I just say, if I make enough money, I will give him a bunch of cash to make an audiobook? I was like, I could just do that. I could just give him, if I make a bunch of money. And this is recognizing a lot of like the privilege of me being able to mess around, because like I was able to be like, I could just give him a chunk of money and be like, that's fine. Like, take this, go and make my thing better. And then, you know, from there, I was like, okay, cool. And then it was kind of just a lot of like building out like the goals and the plans. And like, then I was just like, okay, well then that's kind of how it all kind of shook out, right? Like, it was a lot of different like impulses that I had. And then I was like, okay, well, all of these things are happening. I've got a piece, like, I've got this structure. Why don't I just go for it? And then we kind of went for it, and it actually worked out really nicely. And also, it gave me an excuse to play my game on a bunch of podcasts. And I love that. It is my favorite thing to play games on podcasts. And so, like, I got to play, I played it specifically on, I think, a dozen different Masks actual plays. And it was great. It was a blast.
Yeah. And it was a successful process, right? Like, one of the great things about doing it this way, because Kickstarter, right? Like, you have a certain period of funding time. You either make it in that time or you don't, right? For you, on day one, you had created the project. You put the project up in a minimal form. It was 4 pages, 5 pages, something like that.
It's like 10. It's a 10-page game, and it's still going to be. It's like still a 10-page, or it's, I think, a 13-page game. But like but like, yeah, like, we put it up. I was like, look, there's no interior art. There's a beautiful layout. Like, the layout is gorgeous. There's a cover. And I'm like, this is a product that I would feel happy if it never went beyond this. If I could point to this and go like, my game is done, cool. So on day one, like technically I put it up for pre-order, I think like a week beforehand. But like I had like put it up for pre-order. I was like, look, it's available. Day one. Here's your 2-page preview. You can see the layout. You can kind of see how it looks. Here's the thing. Here's all of it. And this might be the game. There just might not be interior art in the game. If nobody buys it, if nobody's excited about it. And then like, and the thing that like I really loved about, and the thing that I was really excited about going into doing it on Itch, which you were kind of gesturing at, is like there wasn't a time. I realized part as I was getting up, I was like, oh my God, I don't have to set a time frame.
Right.
I can just be like, I'm not touching this money. And then when I get enough money in my Itch account, I will just order the payout and do the thing. I was like, I don't have to be on every day being like, please go buy my game. Please go buy my game before next Tuesday. I could just be like, yeah, if this many people buy the thing, I'll do it. And eventually that happened. And like, that was kind of amazing. And like, they got a great response, and like it got a better response than I expected. Like day one, I sent an email to Eli and said, hey, art's happening.
Right. Yeah. And you know, I've seen some of the spreads. Like I was a pre-orderer. Like I've been tracking the process of the game the whole way through. It was a great game from the get-go. I've seen some of the images you've shared out though about it. And it's getting better and better and more exciting. And I can't wait to see the Ultimate Edition and the ability to do things like new audiobook. And if someone like, if anyone out there has privilege, the statement of the thing I'm going to do with my privilege is give money to other people so that they can do the work that they are incredibly gifted at. That's like a good thing to do with privilege. Right?
I kind of said, I was like, look, this is my hobby money, and my hobby is making cool game stuff. And all of my friends are people who are really good at making game stuff. So why don't I just give them money, and then I get to indulge in my hobby of making games, and they get a bunch of like, they get to enjoy the fruits of that, like a reward as much as anybody, and it feels good. I love it. It makes me really happy. This is the experience of like project running that I love, is being able to just be like, hey, you do a cool thing. Would you like to do it for me? And then I can give you money to do for your efforts and time.
Yeah. And like, for me, it is one of the things I love. Like my first game out the bat, I was like, here are 3 artists I really like. I'm just going to reach out to all of them and see if they want to do a page in the book. Right. And figure out if we can afford it and what levels I need to hit for that to happen. And that is like one of the most fun things about,
100%.
about publishing is like, who do I want to give money to? Who do I love working with? Who can I bring into the world of this thing that I've made and give them the ability to do that? And I think crowdfunding generally does that. I think ItchFunding lets you do that in a way more intentional way. And that's a really great thing about it. So I'm incredibly excited. If you were going to go back and do, like, now that you've kind of gone through mass, you're working towards the Ultimate Edition, if you were going to go back and do things differently, right? If you were going to kind of approach this funding process from from a fresh start, what are some things you might do differently?
Some things I might do differently. I've been thinking about this question all day. There are the kind of like very granular answers of like, there are pieces of things that I would have priced differently. That's like peak marketer Jeff, like putting on the hat and going, well, you priced this at this, you probably should have priced this at this. You ran this sale, you probably, you know what I mean? Like there's like the tactical stuff that's not especially interesting, but like, I think for me, and I know that I just talked for a minute and a half about the joy of not having the stress of a time frame. The one problem with that is that like I kind of never got, or rather like I eventually got, but like I kind of had to consciously, the nice thing about having a time frame, the nice thing about the Kickstarter like window is that there's that moment when it hits 0, right? Like I don't even know if that's necessarily something I would do differently, because I do think the lack of a time frame is a really strong aspect of running something not on Kickstarter. But I do think I would bake in more of a date of like, this is the day, right? Like on this day, I am going to look at the amount of money that I have made, and I'm going to like figure these things out. And even that might be a rolling process where it's like, okay, cool. It's been 3 months. That's how much money I'm putting into art, right? Like that's
Right.
my art budget. It's been 3 more months. There's my audiobook budget, right? Like maybe like but like something to give me a date and a day to like crack a beer and go, all right, we did it. Like, you know what I mean? Like that's the one thing aside from like the tactical stuff. And I think
Right.
that there are other people that can talk about like pieces of that, like Adam Bell's doing like done really interesting things with trying to recreate the kind of 48-hour reminder email. But like for me, the piece that was missing was that watching the Kickstarter tick down to zero moment. And I think that's as much of a brain shift as it is anything of like a learn like what it should have been, and I didn't quite fully like click with this at the time, was that like those moments should have been like when I successfully funded the thing.
Hmm.
But like with Kickstarter, you're like, okay, I funded the thing, and now I might get more, and like I'll say it, that is kind of a toxic mindset that is tied to
Right.
Kickstarter, and it's a thing that I don't like, but it was something that like because I was running so many of these things like a Kickstarter, I carried that mindset over instead of going, okay, this thing is done. This piece of the project is over. I can now celebrate this thing being this concrete block of time being done. And that's the thing that I wish I had done differently. Like that is the piece of the puzzle that I really wish that I had done differently. Also, I definitely undercharged for at least one of the backer rewards, and like it's not gonna hurt the project, but I definitely looked at it and went, oh yeah, right. I just realized like how much work is gonna go into this, and who boy, I probably should have like tripled the amount that I
Right.
charged for this particular reward.
Yeah, no, and I love that idea, and like I did use the timer for mine, but one of the great
Mhm.
things about Itch is, and Thomas Novell did this, and I did this. Like I had set my thing to end at the end of Troika Fest because it was a Troika
Yeah.
supplement that I was creating. And I was like, so I'll just time it up with the fest. When the fest is over, I'll be done. And then this conversation evolved, and I was like, well, I'm talking about Itch funding all next week. I'm gonna pop that time
Bump it
back
up
a
a week.
week because I'm going to be talking about this project all next week. And so why not just extend the deadline? And on Itch, I could just go in and do
And
that.
say, hey, the same like with the sales bar, like
Yeah.
the sales bar function, like you can set that reward. You could set that reward. You could set that just make it another week. Just run that
Yeah.
sale for another.
Yeah.
Which actually, now that I think about it, great. Thank you for reminding me about the sales bar, because you'll note that on the page I didn't do that, and there's a reason for that, and that's the thing that I would have done differently. Um, I
Tell me
had
more.
I had an angry conversation, or somebody got angry with me because, so let me talk about the sales bar on Itch for a moment. I had one Kickstarter super backer moment that made
I will
me
show my project so that people can see the sales bar that we're talking about.
yeah, show your project. So like I don't have a sales bar on the anyone can wear the mask page. I did for about 3 days. And then someone got mad at me and I had a super backer conversation. Because like to get the bar, to get a sales bar to pop up on your page, you have to put your thing on sale. You have to have a sale. Now, so to do that, like the common argument, which you have done here, and like what I did was either do a negative sale, like be like I'm temporarily charging more, or make it like I'm taking 1% off of the price. I bumped down my price from like 15.25 to $15, because $15 was the amount that I wanted. And a buyer got very mad at me because they said, well, your thing's not really on sale if you're only narking it off 25%. That's dishonest, and you're being a dishonest salesperson. And I was like, okay, it says it's $15 in 3 other places on the page. But like, I see your point. If I am marketing this to people who are not familiar with the Itch ecosystem, fine. So I took off the bar and like did it manually. Like every couple days I would go in and I would update a little graphic on the anyone can wear the mask page.
Which I actually 100% I will tell people this. I think you should track stuff no matter what you're doing. This is my first
100%.
tip.
100%.
Track, and in case anyone's going to do, my number one Kickstarter / crowdfunding move is make a fun, clever graphic that you can use to showcase like the progress of your project. And mine are known for being very
100%,
engaging.
100%.
Like I grew a beard on one of mine. We popped zits on Repugnant for every single thing we did. There's a lot of bad things, and we're just filling up this bottle of potion on the alchemy supplement that I have. Like, do both. Like, do a fun thematic thing and do the sell thing, but at least do one. But have some way to show that progress, even if it's like managing that in real time all the time would be a nightmare. Something that you can come back to at major milestones and be like, Bop.
Yeah. 100%. I agree completely. And like, I liked updating the graphic. I liked that I was able to kind of theme it to the project, but I regretted not keeping that sales bar. I regretted caving to a super itcher, or I regretted to the extra scratchy, the super itcher. I regretted bowing down to an angry complaint that I got on a Discord that like wasn't even like games related. I just dropped the link there and got yelled at. But like, the thing that I actually do regret is part of the sales structure, the sales proposition that I made with anyone can wear the mask, which I still think was like this, and I didn't think this part of it through. So the sales structure that I put up for anyone can wear the mask, I basically said, I called it the Unmasked Edition, which I thought was a very clever name for the no interior art, full layout. Like this is the stripped down edition of the game. I called it the Unmasked Edition. I was like, this is unmasked. It's not finalized yet. It's not fully ready, but you buy it now. I will give it to you for $15. When this thing is done, I'm putting it up to $25. Like it is now at a point, like there's enough stuff in it that it's going up in price. Tony, that's a sale.
Right.
I have the product on. that is a like I could have made it like $20 and said it's 25% off at $15, and then I'd have gotten the sales bar. It didn't click with me that I had already put my product on sale. And that's what I would have done differently, because in retrospect, I was like, oh yeah, right. I'm giving it to you at a $5 discount because you're buying an unfinished version while helping me finalize the thing.
Yeah. And
that
not,
is putting it on sale.
Yeah. And not the platform, but the Kickstarter ecosystem. And by ecosystem, I mean all of the external forces that come to bear when you're running a Kickstarter that are part of what makes Kickstarter work forces you to consider how your offered product in MRSP, like your manufacturer suggested retail, or MSRP, the manufacturer suggested retail price, pair up, because most people would say don't discount it on Kickstarter. Now, a lot of people do, a lot of people don't, but there's a lot of intentional conversations usually in the run up to do that. But when you're launching on Itch, you're just like putting it out for like, oh yeah, $5 or $10 or $15 or $25 or whatever you think it is. And there's not those same external forces that make you go, oh, I should think about this. Like, so that 100% makes sense. And so, yeah, no, I appreciate that. So we're as you know, that this all happened before. Again, this was a bigger conversation. It's one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to Jeff. First, not like we had a big conversation. All of the 7 guests we're going to have. About ordering structure, who was going to be on what. A lot of it just ended up being scheduling, but because of the chronology of your project, I really wanted to lead with this because it was before this had really become a bigger conversation. And I'm really excited to explore how that's grown and how that's expanded over the course of the next couple of days. But if someone's considering putting their project up on Itch, right, in the future, as an Itch funding project, or just to do, if they don't want to name it or put something on it, like that's fine. But what would be like some advice you were given? What are some certain things you think that they should consider if they're approaching funding a project through Itch in this type of way?
There are like the considerations, the question that I would ask, the question that like I asked with anyone can wear the mask, and that now that fulfillment is done on mission accomplished and I kind of have a little bit more freedom to kind of have this internal discussion with myself, is for me, like, there are other kind of options, but for me, it's Itch or Kickstarter, right? Like, those are, if we're looking at the two, the Itch option or the biggest dog in the yard, right? Like, and there are very distinct advantages to both. I mean, the bluntest and realist advantage to Kickstarter is that it has a huge built-in market share and audience and algorithm, and you have people that are looking for games on Kickstarter that are looking nowhere else. And it is very easy to make more money on Kickstarter. Like, there's the simplest reality of it is that, like, there is a very, if the bottom line is your top priority, and absolutely not for a second shame or shade if there is, I hope that none of that comes across, because, like, I've been there. I was there with Mission Accomplished. Like, there are projects where it is about, like, I would like to receive a check for this thing that I am making. Then Kickstarter is going to give you a better bang for your buck. Like, especially at this point, I think you can track the numbers over time, and with a lot of the work that Keegan has done in building kind of a structure, and the work that you have done, and like the work that a lot of other people, the people that you're interviewing this week on stream, like, a lot of people have done a lot of work to build a community and to build a sense of enthusiasm around, like, ItchFunding as a concept. But the truth is, like, Kickstarter is still Kickstarter, and, like,
wait, we haven't disrupted Kickstarter. Its market share hasn't been.
We haven't dismantled we haven't burned the Green Realm to the ground yet. The Lich still points at us and laughs. Like, and that's just a reality of figuring out your project, right? Figuring out how much money you need to make the thing, figuring out if you can afford to go, like, this is an incomplete version of the product that might be the only version of the product that ever lives. Like, those things exist. But there are also a lot of advantages to putting a thing on Itch, either just as a standalone product or, like, ItchFunding it. And honestly, I'm so happy that I was forced into the position of ItchFunding Anyone Can Wear the Mask, because, like, I still got, like, I got to make the ultimate version of the thing that I wanted. And in the process, like, I got to do it without ever losing a night of sleep about Kickstarter prep, or about Kickstarter, or about, like, when I'm on the Kickstarter and I'm watching the page, like, you're watching the page, and that, I remember I got advice that was very good advice. And there's a story here that I'll tell because it's funny. I got advice when I launched Mission Accomplished on Kickstarter. Take 2 days off of work. Take 2 vacation days, put them in advance, and say, I am not going into work on launch day, and I'm not going into work the day after. And I did, or specifically, it was launch day. It was the day before and the day after. Like, it was, take those 3 days off. And I did that. And I drove in, and I'm glad I did, because I was useless for those 2 days, because you're just watching the ticker. You're watching the Kickstarter. Like, you're watching the green bar, right? Like, you're just refreshing the page. You're refreshing the page despite the fact that they have built the page that it automatically refreshes. You think that refreshing the page is going to, like, make it go faster. So, like, you're watching the page, you're watching the comments, you're following all the social. You are bombarded with information for 2 straight days, and it's miserable. And it's thrilling, and it's magic, but it's miserable. I took the same time off when I launched Anyone Can Wear the Mask, and by 10:30 in the morning, I was like, I'm just gonna go for a walk. Like, it's like I'm watching the bar climb up, but, like, I'm not getting bombarded. Like, I'm watching the bar climb up. I got social, but, like, it's not like there's no countdown clock. I'm just kind of like, I was like, I'm gonna go for lunch. Jen, do you want anything for lunch? Like, are you good? Like, and, like, that kind of ties into, like, I'm not on a countdown timer, right? Like, the lack of a countdown clock, the idea that, like you had mentioned, like, even if you self-impose one, and you could technically do this on Kickstarter, but, like, I have a feeling people would get mad. um like you can push up your clock. If you got enough money, you can push back your clock and be like, actually, like, I made enough money for this project, I don't need this to be like an itch fund anymore, I'm ending this in 2 days. Like, you got 2 more days to get this before I
Right.
finish it. You can mess with the timing. Like, you're not beholden to the Kickstarter window. You're not, like, that's a huge de-stressor if that is a source of anxiety for you. And it's not for everyone. Like, I know that there are some people that live and breathe that Kickstarter window. I was very much not one of them. But like, that's a huge thing, right? Like, that level of control, that level of non-stress is huge. And the like I had mentioned earlier, the freedom to be like, this project is done. It's done plus, right? Like, it's done like, the feeling of it's done asterisk was hugely freeing for me as somebody that spins a lot of plates on a given day, to be like, anyone can wear the mask is out. I don't have to worry about this again. I get to enjoy it. I get to make it better, but I don't have to worry about whether or not I'm actually going to be able to make it because I made it before I hit publish.
Mm.
And that in itself is like, that's kind of the other thing, is like, you kind of have, like, to me, hitting publish was like a finish line in and of itself. And like, it's very much not when you're on Kickstarter. And that's a huge plus in and of itself.
Yeah. A lot of people approach Kickstarter with that mentality, and they are wrong.
Yeah,
I think that is the beginning of the race.
that is the start. That is the starting line. And it's like that's the other major thing, is like, for anyone can wear the mask, like, the game was out on December 16th. Like, the game dropped. Like, as far as records go, as far as anything, like, that game's release date is December 16th. I finished Anyone Can Wear the Mask in December. The Ultimate Edition is me going back to Anyone Can Wear the Mask and going, I'm going to make this way better. Watch me do that. But my game was done. Like, I have not had to think about, like, oh, I really got to finish this game. I haven't had that thought, because the game is, like, anybody that goes to that game is going there getting as close to a finished product as they can. And like, that's really great. I love that. I love that for a digital product. I still think that Kickstarter is probably better for print. I know that people like Keegan has done like a physical component of like getting print, like raising money for prints via ItchFunding, but like, I still think there's like, for like, if I'm like printing a book, I think it's probably difficult to do via ItchFunding, but like, I could also be wrong. Like, I am also coming to this from a very narrow perspective.
Yeah, the numbers you've got to think about have to be a little bit higher on the inset before you can do anything, and it can be for a print run. Kenoba is we did a physical component because I also knew, like, hey, I like this enough that I can spend whatever to print it if we're just going to break even, because it's just a fun project. But also we had then a publishing house, like a distributor come in and say, hey, could we get 50 copies, which is great. It's great when it happens. And which makes the print run then an automatic, yes, we could just do that. Right. And so, but that's the reality is, like, it is more complicated. It doesn't force people to give you their address, even if they
there's other drawbacks, but like, there's some others, there's a lot of, there's complications, but like, I like that there's a real change in perspective when I brought this project to Itch as opposed to when I brought Mission Accomplished to Kickstarter. And like, that change in perspective, that change in stress level was like such a beautiful thing for me, that like, it became something that I was really, really happy about. And like, and like, the other thing is, it kind of, I don't know. I was very happy with it, and like, I'm happy. I'm really happy with how the thing worked out, and like, those are kind of some things that I think like are important considerations.
Awesome. So you, like we said, you've had the successful Itch Funder, you've done the successful Kickstarter. We've talked about a couple of things people could consider for the future. For you though, the next time you go to ItchFund, I know we talked about some of the things you wish you had done with masks. Are there things you're excited to try out or want to do differently, specifically the next time you try to ItchFund a project that we haven't already hit, maybe?
I would love, like I will say, and this is my own perspective. This is my own perspective. My favorite, I actually genuinely adore the high level backer rewards that I offered. I love them. And like the thing that I'm excited to do more of those because like in a lot of ways, in some very specific ways, if I'm being honest, and this is me sharing some insights. A big part of anyone can wear the mask was testing if I could put that type of content onto a game and have people respond to it.
Yeah.
Like the I'll run a game for you reward, like you can commission me to write your superhero setting that I'll include as a supplement in the game, like that kind of thing, those kind of rewards, those kind of like deluxe level Kickstarter rewards that kind of get added onto projects. They're really, really fun for me. You know, I'm an actual play podcaster, right? Like I love playing games with people. I like meeting people through the act of playing games. That is a fun activity for me. So like, and like I like collaboration. I love taking commissions for things, right? Like I love somebody going, here's what I would like, here's some things that I like, here's some ideas that I have. Go write a 2-page supplement that uses these ideas, and then I take that and I go and I write it and I hand it back to them. Like I like making things for people. And like that sort of that process is something that I enjoy. And so like this was in a lot of ways one of the biggest things I was experimenting with was if that experience would transfer over. And I know that there were people that had done similar things. Sandy Punk Games around the same time just kind of casually dropped a similar kind of like, I'll make a piece of lore for you onto one of their games, and like people bought it. But like I wanted to kind of be like, is this a thing that I can do more? Is this a thing that I can get to play with more? And like I kind of played it a little safe in terms of like the things that I offered, right? I was like, I'll play a game with you. That's fine. I will do that. But I kind of want to get really weird with it. And like just in terms of like, I don't fully know what the next big game is going to be. Like I've got a few that are like in a place where I could like move them into being production, but like Canonize, which is a game about conspiracy boards and pop culture conspiracies and like making fictional crossovers between your favorite pop culture things. What if I like thinking about like what the weird rewards are going to be for that aren't just I'll play a game with you is like really exciting to me.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And then there's one. Sorry, finish your thought, and then I have one other.
Oh no, I was going to say we've talked about this before. Also, I am also a huge fan of weird, over the top deluxeification of games. Like I played it pretty safe on mine with just like, hey, I'll play a game with you. Like we'll get you in a game with me and the other person, Alex, who created the Itch project with me. We'll get you in a game together. We'll play, easy peasy fun. Because it also by that point I'll be looking to write an adventure and I'll need to run it with people.
Yeah, and
so like. Perfect excuse, right? Easy things. But you know, Beards, we did like a custom wooden box. We put characters in the game. Like we created custom character sheets for people. You know, but we've talked at length. I think, you know, Gion right now is doing some of the most amazing high-end custom stuff with the Connected Path and Keepsake games. Like
breathtakingly cool.
Yeah. So there's so many great things you can do with deluxe concepts out there. And Itch, because of its nature also, you could also just you can put them in for the campaign. You could leave them up and say, yeah, this might be worth it just whenever. You just want me to run this game for you and you bought it? Here you go.
That was part of it. That was part of what I wanted to do with these rewards was to go like, look, I've got capacity to run 5 games of this. Could be now, could be 6 months from now. I will run these 5 games and then I will revisit like my timing and my capacity and all these things. And like I was so happy with how that turned out. And like the other thing that I really want to like really push on that like kind of fell into place afterwards. Like I technically made it a stretch goal on the project. But it wasn't really, because it was already a thing that I was funding on my own and paying for. And I ended up having to write the stretch goal as kind of I already paid for this. This would just give me that money back.
This would let you pay for that.
Yeah, I was just like, this will put the like, but like, I really want to bring in. So this is not fully a reveal because I talked about this on Twitter a few weeks ago, but like we're doing a limited run, anyone can wear the mask actual play. That I'm hugely excited about. I've been losing my cool about it for months. Um, and that's probably gonna live. I haven't fully worked out the details, but like that might also live on Itch, right? Like there might be a deluxe version of that podcast that lives on Itch. But like bringing that into the actual just like main game page of like this is the game, because there's things that you can do with like reward tiers of like you pay this much you get X, you pay this much you get Y, like putting different files at different like payment amounts. Like the idea of going of really building out like a bunch of stuff in advance and going, okay, here's the game. Once I make this much money, I will go and put art in it. Here's the podcast. Once I make this much money, I will go and get sound effects and music and all the other stuff, like make this into a theatrical production. Like put all of the things and be like, if you just want the game, if all you want is the PDF, it's $10. If you want access to the raw audio of the podcast and you want to get updates about this thing, it's $15. Like really like build out not just a game, but a game line and a storefront is like such a weird and cool and interesting prospect. And also it taps into the podcaster part of my brain and like the podcaster part of my hobbies, where like I start thinking about how I can integrate podcasting and making audio and like theater and performance into the finished product. And that's just how I spend my evenings. Frankly, that's just what I fill out my bullet journal with. So like, I'm already excited about thinking about like what that stuff is going to look like.
I love it. No, I can't, like, I'm so super excited to see how it continues to develop. Super excited to get the Ultimate Edition. Very excited to see whichever project you launch next. If people out there are watching, you have questions, we've got one more thing Jeff and I are going to talk about before we call it a night. Before we do that, just FYI, like I mentioned, this is part of a series we're doing over the course of 3 nights. So Jeff and I are talking tonight, but tomorrow night I'll be talking with Keegan, Nick, and Adam. We'll be talking about their projects, what they did, a little bit more about what ItchFunding is, what the community is doing, and what people are trying to achieve with their projects. We'll be talking about their specific projects, but one of the things I want to ask everybody that I'm about to ask Jeff is what are a few other projects they love, so we'll talk about some of those also. And then on the 6th, I'm going to be doing a very similar conversation with Thomas, Pamu, and Sam. Absolutely amazing lineup of people. All these people have projects either up now or that they have already funded, or some of them have a mix of both. Some of them are already on round 2 of this whole process. So we're very, very excited about that. By the way, if you want to see any or all of these games, you can go to ItchFunding.games. I'll drop that link in the chat in just 1 minute. But we're going to be doing this the rest of the week. By the way, if you want to help support the channel, we host these conversations. We hope they're helpful for you. You can become a content champion, help us make the content here on the channel. None of this money actually goes to me at this point in time. It all goes to paying our graphic designer and our editing team, which they get paid no matter what. This helps me afford to pay them better and for us to be able to do more content. There's some great benefits for you also too, but if you're able to do that, please do. But if you have a question, type it in the chat below wherever you happen to be watching right now. We'll bring it up in the conversation also.
Please do, because I like answering questions. It's my favorite. That's why I like being a guest on things. I enjoy questions. I like talk. It makes me feel like I'm talking to people, and I like talking to people. I like friends. I like conversations. I like to laugh.
There you go. So I am gonna, there was nothing that sounds more dismissive than sometimes this little phrase. There we go. Jeff likes friends. Isn't that great?
There we to be fair, I did end that with, I like to laugh, and I don't know what moves you can make in response to that. That's
the only one is there we go, or insane laughter that you hopefully join in on. And then we just look like madmen together. And so,
correct.
With that said, what are a couple projects that you have seen on Itch? It just, 1 or 2 that you have really, really enjoyed. While we're figuring out what those are, I'm going to go ahead and bring up the ItchFunding list so that people can see that.
Yeah.
This is a site put together by Keegan, but it'll also help me quickly navigate to whatever game you happen to tell me in just 1 second, because I didn't ask you to send me links in advance. But yeah, what are some of the games that you've been most excited about? What do you love about them?
Hyper City Hyper City by Thomas looks amazing. I read it recently. It is so very cool. Like it is extremely cool and interesting, and like just the game itself. Like I am an Ironsworn sucker, right? Like I am a sucker for Ironsworn. It is one of my favorite games. It is a game. This is a game that I dearly love. And then reading Hyper City, I was like, oh my god, this is so cool and interesting, and like its approach is fascinating. It rips. It just rips. It is a game, and like the premise of you are playing in your own city, but you're connected to this like internet space that you communicate with other people. So it's like a solo play experience that you go online and talk to people about. Like it blows my mind. It's cool as hell. Kanabo looks is I've read also a game that I read recently, and like the layout for that game is so beautiful, and it's so like it's simple, but it's like gorgeous, and it's awesome, and like the actual like writing of it is really really cool, and like it's got really great tools for like building play and scenarios and stories, and like I kind of just like I lost a block of time just like reading this and rolling dice and going like, oh cool, oh that's really cool, oh that'd be really cool if, and like just kind of like really great, had a really great like solo play experience for the benefit of no one but me, which is important. You know, we are people that live online, and it's important for us to have our own experience, like our private play experiences. Beautiful game, beautiful writing, beautiful layout, like great, very very happy and excited about it. Looks cool as hell.
Yeah, awesome. I am super excited. If anybody has any questions, please let me know. You can find all of these at itchfunding.games. I'll drop that in the link here, but if you're watching, I know Ulysses just asked on YouTube, you can find it in the description of this video. Also, the replay for this will also be available right on YouTube immediately after we're done, or within 5 minutes as soon as the internet finally catches up to everything. It'll be available. But we've linked to the ItchFunding main site, so that's going to be the easiest way to find all of these, as well as Jeff's games and Jeff's podcast also too. Keegan, did you just try to drop a link in? You're not allowed to. Only I am, because we keep the spammers locked out also too. But I'll drop itchfunding.games in also too, which I meant to set up a link for ahead of time, but then I didn't. And so games. Hopefully I did it right. Hopefully that goes to it. Somebody let me know if it doesn't. No, those phenomenal projects.
It does. I just tested it.
Yay! I did it right. We'll actually have both of the creators of both of these games on talking about these games. One tomorrow, Nick, who did Kanobo, and then Thomas will be on Thursday with that. But if you have any questions, let us know. Jeff wants to answer your questions. It could be about anyone could wear the mask. It could be about ItchFunding. Jeff, while they do that, tell us a little bit about Party of One Pod, because I am a huge fan of Party of One Pod. As somebody who loves to discover new games, also who plays with designers a lot of the time, who loves a lot of the same things that you do. I deeply enjoy getting to learn about games through your experience, because it's a very unique setting that no one else really replicates, I think, as well as you do, at least for sure.
Yeah, I love Party of One. It is my beautiful precious thing. It is quietly my favorite thing that I do. It's my second. No, that's not true. It's my second favorite thing that I do, and that's because Talking Nog is the world's only eggnog centric podcast. So yeah, Party of One is an actual play podcast focused on 2-player role playing experiences. Every week, I sit down with a friend. We play a 2-player game. We share some laughs, maybe a few tears, and we have a really good time. I play a lot of games with designers. We are focused on indie RPGs. We made the call last summer that we were not going to feature Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition or any 5e products going forward. And we've stuck to that for the last year, and we're sticking to that going forward. But like, so we've been featuring, we feature weird indie games, and we feature a lot of games with designers. We play, and every episode is a self-contained story with a different system and a different guest. So every single episode is an on-ramp, which I'm very happy with. Like, it is a great podcast. If you don't want to binge a podcast, you could just kind of hop around. I always describe it as I make movies, not shows. And sometimes I wish I made shows, but like I make movies, and it's great. And it is a wonderful podcast. It fills a really good space in like indie games. I'm really happy with like its role in like helping people find indie games and helping people get into indie RPGs. And it all like it helps. I've got a lot of stories about how it's helped people find games, a lot of stories about how it's helped people get into RPGs, and a lot of stories about how it has turned people into designers. And for the first two, I think I'm very, very grateful. And for the third one, I'm so sorry.
It's not if you're good enough to be a game designer, it's if you're dumb enough to not stop. And so that's awesome. We haven't had any questions come in, which I'm just going to go ahead and assume that means we just did a thoroughly excellent job.
We crushed it. Frankly, we crushed it. Like, that's all. That's what that means.
Tell people again, one more time. I know the links are right below your face right now, but what are the best places to find your work online?
The best place to find my work online is at jeffstormer.com. You can find Party of One at partyofonepodcast.com, and you can find Anyone Can Wear the Mask at jeffstormer.itch.io/mask. And then you can follow me on Twitter at partyofonepod, where I relentlessly and annoyingly post about all of the things that I do to no end.
Awesome. If you want to check out the game we were talking about tonight that Jeff ItchFunded, that is Anyone Can Wear the Mask. I just dropped the link again in Twitch. Also, if you want to check out the game that I made, because I extended it for a week just so you could check it out as part of my ItchFunding sale, you can go to the link for that also too down in the chat or in the description if you're watching this on Facebook. It's the Academy of Divine Sublimation. It's an alchemy supplement that's got a lot of weird body horror stuff in it because we decided alchemy just affects the person who drinks the potion in the weirdest ways possible for the most part. That's great for OSR, Troika, or anything else that you want to throw weird alchemy stuff into. But please check that out. Again, come back tomorrow night. Please, if you are able to, or catch this on the replays. We're going to be talking again to Keegan, Nick, and Adam tomorrow night about ItchFunding in kind of the way that we're seeing it now. This was a lot of Jeff's insight because Jeff has such a great background in marketing, is aware of a lot of, has run successful Kickstarters, made this choice, brought a lot of this conversation to the forefront in the brain trust community, along with the degreening pieces that have come up there. And so I really wanted to start there, but we're going to dive more deeply into that. We're going to talk about a lot more about best practices and some other stuff over the course of this week. I'm going to drop a link to all these beautiful people with kind of the rough structure. My hope is we can put together a lot of this with the notes that we're taking, with the conversations we're having, into a best practices document. Maybe we'll ItchFund it. Who knows? Maybe we'll just put it out so that anybody can access it also too. We already had somebody volunteer to do the layout who is absolutely phenomenal. Our good friend MV stepped up and said they would love to do that. And so I am just super thrilled to be able to share what I am learning from people with this, because I will be honest, like, I put up an ItchFunding project and I don't know enough about Itch to have done it right. So it is a resource that I will use the next time I go to do one to do it better. And I am super excited about that. I also don't want people to think, I think Jeff was very clear about this. I think I was very clear about this. There's a role for Kickstarter and there's a role for Itch as funding platforms. There are other ones out there also. And I'm excited to explore even how some of them might pair up. An Itch funding project to lead into a Kickstarter could be a very cool thing to do.
I thought a lot about that. I thought a lot about that in terms of like, if you were to Itch fund like the digital version of a game and just be like, here's the digital version. And then like, honestly, like I might do this with Anyone Can Wear the Mask, is like, in 6 months, in a year, whatever, be like, I want to print this. I made this print friendly. Like I am ready to print this. I have this many extra pages that are already like written, laid out, art is added to them. I would like to make this a print product. The digital version is done. There is literally nothing that needs to be paid to any artist, layout artist, anyone. The only expense is handing this to a printer. This is how much that's going to cost. I'm taking this to Kickstarter. Like that in itself, like that possibility of going like, I am paying for a print run. Nothing else goes into this other than money that I am handing to a person who runs a print shop, is kind of like that kind of owns. Yeah. It's like that level of concrete, that level of like concrete knowledge of like, I don't have to, I'm not making this game, I'm just having it printed. that like the prospect of doing that in a Kickstarter kind of rules to me.
Yeah.
Like that is kind of like an awesome possibility of like how you could take a project that was funded on Itch and go, hey, I want a thing that's going to be better suited to Kickstarter. But these other parts that I was able to do elsewhere, I don't have to worry about them at all.
Right. In a world where your game is already funded. And so, no, and it's a great way. Like, it is a great way to, even as you're approaching a Kickstarter, the stress can go away, because it's really like, okay, this fails. Okay, people don't want a physical version of this game. Great, whatever. Like, it's already out. It's already done. Like, we are through this. The game is there. It's done. There's nothing else that's going into this. There's no emotional letdown. Yeah. And that's fine. I just know, like, this is a digital game, and that's how people want to engage.
Yeah,
in this.
It's the difference between like my dream isn't coming true, and I just, all right.
I don't have to do more work. Great.
Yeah,
like, I don't
great.
Have to deal
I
with
don't have to stuff envelopes. Cool.
And so,
like, it's such a cool win-win of like my game is done. If people want a book, give me money for a book.
So that brought out a question. Here we go. Deku Games. Do you think existing purchasers might be upset if it goes to print? I assume also gets the PDF.
So I've thought about this extensively, and my answer is set up a price tier that is book no PDF for if you've already bought the digital version, and book plus PDF if you have not, and like make that very clear and spell that out very specifically of like, this tier is, you do not get any digital content. This is designed for people that already own the digital content. It is essentially the difference in cost between the digital version and a print product. So like, it might be cheaper than like so like it would be extraordinarily cheap, right? Like it might be you're getting the print book for $10, but the idea is that you've already given me 25, and like, but then there's a version for 35, which is, this is a print product. You're also getting the audiobook, the play space, you're getting all of the things. And that's if you've never purchased the game before, here's your way to get it. But like, if you've purchased the game, I'm fine with you only giving me a certain amount. Yeah. And then if people abuse that, whatever, I've already got the thing, right? Like, it doesn't necessarily impact me in the same way.
Conversely, you could communicate to them via Itch. You could send out an update saying, we're doing
like,
a Kickstarter.
hey, look,
if you want the physical, like, send me, like, here, I've added this tier. It's the physical only tier on Itch. Yeah. You add it, and when I go to order all the stuff through Kickstarter, you can ignore the Kickstarter, but I'd love you to share it. If you just want it here, just get it here. But if you want to help boost the awareness of the project, go click this level on Kickstarter. You can do both and either or.
You could even really do what you could really do, and this is me poking at a thing and say, and I might come to the end of this sentence and find that I think I'm entirely wrong. You could even set up arguably like a private or like an unlisted itch page, right? Like for people who bought the thing, that you remove it from the search categories, you remove it from the itch page, like the itch pages from the browse, and you make it so that the only place you can get to it, it's not in your storefront. The only place that you can get to it is in the email that you send to backers, where you say, here is a page for you to buy the game in its physical form. You've already bought the thing. This is only for you. Like, please don't share this link around. And then some people will share the link around and whatever. But like, it is at the same price tier that you would offer it, that like is available for the Kickstarter. So it wouldn't really mess with your day. But like, you just go like, here's the page. On it is only a reward tier that requires you to give me an address. Like, you cannot buy the thing without giving me an address. Here's your itch page. If you want to support the game physically, here's a page that's going to let you do that.
Yeah. No, and I think and here's the great thing about ItchFunding and the horrible thing about ItchFunding.
Yeah.
We're taking a tool and we're hacking it. We're taking a much more flexible tool than Kickstarter that doesn't do all the things that the one thing that Kickstarter's in to do and as well does, and doing a lot of other things with it that it does a million times better. And figuring that out.
We are using a tool that is in no way designed for what we're using it for, but damn it if we're not using that tool.
Right.
And we're doing a lot of workarounds, but they're good workarounds.
And that's the thing. Like there is, because iterative design is a thing that happens in video game development, which is really what Itch is designed for. Like it can do all of these things. It's just the knowing how to do them. And there's some like a follow me button we've talked about would be great and doesn't exist. And they haven't responded to Keegan's emails apparently. You know, like, but like Adam figured out a way to do that worked to say, hey, if you just click this free level, all I'm going to do is communicate with you about the game to remind you 48 hours and 8 hours beforehand that you potentially wanted to come back and support this game. You know, like there's things that you can do for that. In my case, you might just accidentally send everybody the base copy of the game for free. So like if you know, go click that right now, that's what'll happen. I think I may have fixed it yesterday actually, but who knows? But the reality is like those tools exist, or the ability to do them exists without a lot of savvy. I just am the person who refuses to learn before I do. I like to learn while I do. And so if you have more questions, feel free to go ahead and type them in now. If we don't get to them on air, I will message them to Jeff, and we'll you know, that'll be good Twitter fodder for the next couple of weeks. And so
I will record a series of postscript videos. There'll be me in front of a fireplace. I can't guarantee that. I don't know why I'm saying that, but like we'll get them. We'll get your questions answered. We will answer your questions.
It'll be Jeff in front of the fireplace drinking out of a flask, and it'll be called Anyone Can Drink the Flask.
Anyone can drink the flask.
And
hello.
But only really Jeff. And so, Jeff, thank you so much for being here tonight. Hopefully you get to come back and at least participate in chat in the next couple of nights. But I really just appreciate you setting aside this time, being able to be here with us, and for the work that you did on Anyone Can Drink the Flask, as somebody who bought the game, who loves your games, who loves the content you create, but also for the way you kind of stepped in and said, I'm going to put on a different hat, think about something in a different way, and the way that you've helped champion these conversations and the work that everybody we're going to talk to over the next couple of days has done. So thank you so much for that. I deeply appreciate it. Again, tomorrow night, we're going to be sitting down with Keegan, Nick, and Adam. The night after that, we're going to be sitting down with Thomas, Pamu, and Sam. A thing we haven't even touched yet. People have asked like, hey, you know, I can't tune in because you're doing this at 9 p.m. and I live in Europe. And guess what, Europe? You've had a lot of influence in the rest of the world. This is for everybody else. A big part of this conversation, we wanted to make it accessible to our Latin American RPG communities and to our CRPG and other Asian RPG communities, because one of the things you want to not know about Kickstarter is that there are 25 countries that just can't use Kickstarter. And a lot of them are part of that. And so we're going to be talking to people. A lot of them are major parts of the RPG community. We're going to be talking to people from those communities about this. And we wanted to make sure this stream live was accessible to those communities also, too. It was very important to us as part of the planning process. And we really wanted to make sure it was a thing. So everything will be available on replay after the fact, if not. But please come back for those conversations. Please consider supporting the channel if you can. This has been an ItchFunding conversation. I don't have a normal sign off. So Jeff and I are going to do the same thing that I always do. As I say, I don't have a normal sign off. We're just going to wave at the camera until I take us off air.